Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, everybody. Damian, good morning, my friend. How are you?
Morning, Mr. Walton. I'm very well, thank you. Glad to be back again. 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row. Is it?
No,
No, not quite. Oh, it just feels like it.
It feels like it, doesn't it? Yeah, I guess. Does that mean you're spending too much time with me? Is that what you're telling me?
Never, Zeno. Good to be back.
It's lovely to see you. I always enjoy catching up with you. Now, it would be a missed opportunity not to talk about the football game that happened over the weekend, which saw England versus Ireland. Damien, as our man from Ireland, any comments on the game? And I mean, it's important European news, isn't it? Any comments?
It is. I'm sure everybody's waiting to hear if they didn't hear the score. Well, let's just say Ireland. I would say Ireland came second, but actually it was such a one-sided game. I'd almost say Ireland came third. It was not quite the result I was looking for. So maybe we should just move on to more important stories of the week.
Yeah, more important things, more important short-term rental rating things. Yeah, I will say though that without trying to sound like Joe Biden, I do have an Irish mum, and so a game like that always leaves me a little bit confused. But for the audience who didn't watch the game or haven't engaged with it, clearly I wasn't the only one with this dilemma. Because the two scorers for England, ironically, had also represented Ireland in their youth, and one of them refused to celebrate. So, for the first time in my life, as an English / kind of Irish person, I feel seen, Damian. I feel like this is my time. You know, I am Declan Rice.
You're going to just spend your whole time just going. Yeah. Well, look, a lot of people probably don't even know I'm Irish. I think a lot of people in the industry just assume I'm English. But especially when it comes to sport, I am staunchly and fiercely Irish. And look, one thing that I think all Irish men and women have in common is, and I probably include Scots and Welsh here as well, you want to beat the English. That's a given. It doesn't in rugby. You know, we've done okay over the last while. It doesn't happen much in football, and that record will continue for quite some time. I think Ireland are not in a good position. Yeah. But hey ho.
There you go. Well, I must say I enjoyed it, especially when the two goal scorers, again, because there's such a crossover between England and Ireland, right? You know, I'm a good example of it, right? And it's very common in the UK, isn't it? It's so common. And then even our new caretaker manager, the England manager, has also represented Ireland at a senior level. I mean, it's just fantastic. It must have felt like, really, for Ireland, it's a PR exercise. Why could you not convince these players to play for you? You'd have won the game hands down, right?
Inept governance of our sport, I would say, Leo, for many years. But that's a conversation for another day that I don't think our viewers or listeners are interested in.
No, and I assume that this is all going to be cut out quite rightly. And if it isn't, it's just because someone's enjoyed the fact that I'm teasing you somewhere. So look, Damian, thanks. Really nice to see you. Sorry to coat you off and tease you about the football. Lovely to have you back. You're probably on the build up to the next conference, which is, I want to say, London, right?
Nope. Dubai. We have Dubai in less than 4 weeks. So very exciting. So yes, we are very much the countdown there. Usual, confirming speakers, finalizing schedule, and all of the little nitty gritty badges and catering and all these little things we do for conferences. But yeah, all good.
Great. Well, it feels like autumn's arrived for me. After a summer of not traveling, I'm sort of back and on the road again. I was in Barcelona this week with my team, which was great, and then some time in our London office, and I'm gearing up towards a bit of a family holiday. Actually, we're taking the kids away next week, so I'm having a late summer, early autumn break, which will be nice because the weather's really turned here in the UK, and then it's head down to Christmas. So yeah, it does. It feels like the busy times are drawing in. Tell me,
And where you off? Where you go off to, Leo? Very quickly.
Oh, sorry. Where am I going? Marseille. Yeah,
Lovely.
in the south of
Great
France.
city.
Yeah, which I know you're a fan of as a place. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But the Guardian newspaper tells me it's very on trend. So I'd like to state for the record that I booked it before the Guardian newspaper told me it was on trend. But there you go. So clearly we're going somewhere, and we're going by train, which I've said a few times on the pod, which I think is interesting. So we are. If I can't carry it on my back, I'm not taking it, and that's made doubly difficult because I have two children who I can't ask to carry their own luggage on the train. So if I share pictures of myself on holiday, you might find I'm wearing the same shorts and t-shirt probably for the entire week in an attempt to not have too much stuff to lug through Paris when I have to change trains.
Good on you, Leo Walton. You're doing wonderful things for the sustainability movement in our industry.
Thank you, my friend. Okay, so busy time of it. We've got lots to talk about, which is really good. I shout out again to Dale from Host and Stay for doing the hot take interview with me. I hope if you haven't seen it, guys, it's worth checking out. So that's really interesting news around the industry. Everyone seems to be talking about this Host and Stay deal, so that's definitely caught everybody's attention. I think it is very interesting. So much going on. Damian, what's caught your eye this week?
Well, one that I just noticed yesterday, actually, which was, and I'm going to read that, it's on the short-term rentals website. TripAdvisor evolves model, cancels STR stays past October. So, I mean, anyone who's been in the industry for, say, longer than 10 years will know that TripAdvisor was once one of the biggest names in the vacation rental industry, and really part of the big four alongside Airbnb, Booking, and Vrbo. So this is quite a fall from grace. I'm led to believe it's something very intentional, and they wanted to let this side of their industry, of their business, just slide away. Apparently had trying to get some buyers for it, but nothing happened. And now it's almost going to cease to exist in the next few months. So kind of sad fall from grace for the TripAdvisor brand in terms of vacation rentals anyway, but something of huge interest to me. I worked a little bit with TripAdvisor back in the day, trying to helping them with their inventory, just on a freelance basis.
Was that the beginning of TripAdvisor, do you think?
This is probably when they decided to change their model, yeah. But yeah, just very interesting. But you know, the thing is, I think we often think of the big three OTAs in our industry, but this really, this does go to show how things change, and it won't be the big three forever. There will be some come and go. We spoke of we're all constantly speaking about Google, Oyo, others who have been mentioned and really gone by the wayside. So I think it's important just to remember that things are cyclical and things do change.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the fact that things are cyclical is what makes this article really, really interesting. So nothing's forever for sure. I think in terms of the OTA landscape as well, something that caught my eye. Related is the Court of Justice of the European Union upheld a $2.4 billion fine against Google relating to Google Shopping, which is how it has abused its dominant position by favoring its own shopping services over its competitors online. Now, fans of the show will know that we've focused on the Digital Markets Act that was passed in the European Union, which is an attempt to kind of reduce the ability of dominant players, digital players, to abuse their position of superiority in a market. So the European Union is really hot on this. And it was a fine that originally was imposed in 2017 that has been upheld. We know this has implications for Google's short-term rental and hotel search businesses. So much so, I mean, there's a quote here from the Trivago CEO saying, "We know that Google has been self-preferencing its its hotels for years, and we've been complaining about this. So clearly it's something that the EU is all over, has huge implications for, I think, Google vacation rentals in Europe. So back to your point on TripAdvisor, I don't think anything's set or established. I think the search market is very much up for grabs. And this ruling, I think, as well, also probably limits Google's ability to put vacation rentals or hotels in their map search in the same way. I think that's also another thing. We've touched on that in the pod in the past, which again is not great for consumers because it's actually a really good way to search for accommodation. But again, make sure that they're not getting preference in over competitors. So, not only do I think we can't say it'll be the big three or the big four forever, I do think the search landscape is very much up for grabs. Now, you're much more of an SEO person than me. Do you think that's a fair point?
I think that Google will continue its dominance for a long, long time to come. I do not see any shifting sands here in search engine land. I think, yes, they will continuously face fines for their dominance in all markets, and this is no surprise to me. But look, there probably will be many appeals, and this will probably go on for several more years. But Google is so utterly dominant, especially in the US. I see no changes here.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, SEO expert Damian Sheridan gives us his opinion there. Thank you, buddy. Even if you did contradict everything I said, thanks. That makes me feel good about myself and my knowledge of SEO. Another thing that caught my eye, and then we'll get on to the articles proper, is Airbnb restarts signups for the experiences program. So, guys, experiences are back. I think the question you're really asking is, did they ever really go away? Have they ever really been effective? Hard to say. Do we care? Or is it still a swing and a miss as a part of Airbnb's business, one that they'll inevitably not generate too much revenue from? I think it's more of a watch this space, right? Like, we have seen that they've struggled with the experiences part of their business. I think we've been supportive of the idea that they should just kind of gently sunset it. Clearly they're back and they're having another go at it. I guess it's a sign that the in-stay guest is still everybody's big target at the moment. How to monetize that in-stay guest, how to create that concierge style black book that a traditional hotel would have, or go to this restaurant, go to this museum. But the importance here, I guess, now is they're going to focus on the authenticity and credibility of an experience and not have such an open platform. So I think it's interesting. Damian, what do you think? Is it just another publicity stunt, or could they be getting it right this time?
I definitely don't think it's a publicity stunt. I think I've always been intrigued by the Airbnb experiences, because it's not something I would ever book. I'm even having a little look through all of the various experiences they have on offer. It's interesting to see how many they have and how many reviews each have, and they clearly do get quite a lot of traction for these. It's never anything I've experienced, but I do get the value to them, clearly, financially, but also for the guests. The guests generally, for vacation rental, as in a holiday rental, they are generally, if you have a family or you're generally doing something, you're looking to live like a local, all of those kind of corny phrases, but you are looking to experience the town, the destination, and to do something that's kind of real. So I totally get it. However, I couldn't tell you the actual monetary value and how it worked previously, how it's going to work now, and how trends have changed. But I do think there's definitely something in this. But perhaps more importantly, I think we should all individually be looking at what we're offering our guests, and how we hook them up with individual companies, partners locally, and how we can make the experience better. So regardless of the actual OTA platform, I think property managers and hosts should be looking to do this and provide these experiences ourselves.
Yeah, who does it better than a host, right? Hey, go to the bakery around the corner, say my name. Yeah. In my case, they might charge you extra if you say my name. But you had a good relationship there. You get a discount. You get the nicest seat in the restaurant. All that sort of good stuff. Kind of thinking about my parents' village where they live, where they go and eat in the same restaurant every week, and they have a seat. They have their own special seat in the restaurant, which is what. isn't it? So they come in and their table is sort of kept for them in their usual place. Sounds very grand. It's not, but that whole thing. If someone was staying in their village, you'd say, right, come to this restaurant, mention my name. Authentic, genuine. I think no one's better than doing that than a local host. That said, I think if Airbnb sort of suggested something to me that I thought looked decent, I'd potentially give it a go. I guess that is the criticism of the experiences part of the business previously. Is it's just there was a load of rubbish in there, right? Which is like the usual sort of go and do a cheese tasting, and it's really just a big brand hiding behind it, or go and walk around with a tour guide, and actually you could go and find that on a tour guide website. So yeah, perhaps it's a quality bar thing. Let's keep an eye on it. I know Sarah will have lots of views on this, and will probably be, because she's always on holiday, we'll probably be trying them before we get to try them. So I'm sure we'll hear from her about that next time. Okay, let's take a sharp turn to something that I know you really wanted to focus on today. Something that we're definitely not talking about in our industry. Do you want to go for it, Damian?
Yeah, this is definitely not something we're talking about. So again, back to short-term rentals, and big shout out to Paul Stevens and the team for including this week. So it's an article about Airbnb strengthening its support for an anti-trafficking organization in the US called Polaris. Now, the story it's kind of basic. It's the point of the story is that it's strengthening it. Airbnb has provided funding to this organization called Polaris in the US, and now they are helping them translate this what's called a global modern slavery directory into 6 additional languages. And this particular directory is somewhere where victims and survivors of human trafficking can get help, and it's a way of combating trafficking. They provide heat maps and all kinds of things to help combat trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking. This is something that I don't think we want to hear about, and perhaps a lot of people don't even think that this is related to our industry. But let me tell you, it really is. Leo, I don't know if you know Catherine Radcliffe, who is Canadian woman.
I'm glad we're giving her a shout out, because I think it's probably good. I think we should probably link to her as well in the show notes, so that people can, if they want to learn more. I actually messaged her, Damian, on the strength of knowing that you wanted to talk about this, and she said she is really open to speaking to anyone who's listening who wants to learn more about it. So we should definitely link out to her.
She's probably the leading voice in our industry about awareness of trafficking within the short-term rental industry, and she's amazing. She's when you talk to her, you just feel like, wow, I need to do something here. Anyway, I encourage everybody to reach out to her and connect. I met her a few years ago, and we have, perhaps those who are even aware of human trafficking, we might think there is a very tiny possibility in some countries whereby, guests may go from place to place. Short-term rentals are the perfect accommodation for human trafficking. Anonymous, we can move from place to place, very short stays. There's no reception or anything like that. You can do things very quietly and in the dark. It's something that we never talk about, and this particular article isn't really talking about it. It's just really highlighting the fact that Airbnb has subsidized and is helping Polaris with this directory and with this resource for those who need to get the help. But I wonder how many people in our industry are actually thinking, wow, has anyone ever stayed in any of my properties who is suffering in this kind of way, who's been held against their will? And it's not just guests, it's labor as well. It's some of the vendors potentially that we are working with, cleaners. we may not even know that they are working against their will too. And this is something that Catherine really highlights as well. So the reason I just wanted to bring this particular article to the fore here was in terms of the overall topic of trafficking in our industry. I mean, a big shout out to Florida, especially, and the US, because there's much more of an awareness of this happening than in Europe. I'm afraid to say in Europe, we ultimately have our heads in the sand, and we're not, nobody is talking about this. Yes, Booking.com and others, they might have a anti-slavery mission statement or something. But how often do we hear webinars referencing this? How often do we see training for this? There is in the US, I might add, but not here. So the onus is on us and is on some of the leading voices in our industry to highlight this more. It is happening. I don't know the statistics, and perhaps we should invite Catherine on to speak about this. It's quite rife in the US, and it's happening. It's underground, so we may never know the actual statistics, but it's just really something I just wanted to highlight here. If anyone is listening to this, hopefully they are, just have a think. Wow, is there something even that I could have a little note somewhere in one of my properties to say, are you being affected? Here's a phone number for you, or some level of support, maybe in a guidebook or something like this. Let's just be aware that this is a thing. This is a real thing in the world, and a way to move people against their will is in short-term rentals. And I hate to bring the whole tone down of this podcast, but I just wanted to introduce this this week. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good that you've raised it, and it is unseen. That is the challenge for the industry. So if somebody has a raging party, you find evidence quite quickly. So the neighbors complain, you find drugs, drink, mess, chaos when you walk in to clean, all that sort of stuff, right? I know this because in my business, that's often when you pick up the phone to me and tell me, okay, you're going to need to help me sort this out. This is very, very unseen because people move. It's professionally done. People move through generally without generating a fuss or an interest around what they're doing. That's why it's so challenging, and that's why it's not being talked about as much as it should be. Because as a property manager, you're thinking, great, I've got the home back, it's clean, rinse, repeat, move on to the next thing. So it is a real challenge, and I think around this, education is the number one most important thing. So I call on all educators, mastermind group leaders, conference organizers to try and focus on it and make sure that people are aware of what the signs are to look out for. I would also say that having a strategy around screening and all of that sort of good stuff is also really good, is also a really smart way of doing it, so that don't assume that person is coming for the intention that they tell you they're coming for.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean every guest is a potential criminal, but it means that some are, and if you have a robust strategy behind it, it will really help. So I think it's serious, and there are bits and bobs that can be done to help prevent it. So it's training, it's education, and it's making sure you have a strategy for knowing who's coming into your property, and don't see it as not your responsibility. I guess is the key, right? You're more than just hosting properties. You're also trying to have a positive impact on people's lives, not the opposite. So yeah, I agree. It is a hard topic to discuss, but potentially we can bring Catherine on at some point to do a feature on it, and we don't want to shy away from these difficult topics. We want to try and see if we can help make a difference. So I applaud you for raising it this week.
Just final thing on that, Leo. Heather on the Vacation Rental Formula website, she has highlighted this as well. And the Thanks for Giving ladies, they have too. They have a podcast with Catherine. Both highlight ways to not to detect, but ways to be on the lookout for potential human trafficking in your property. So I'd encourage everyone just to check both of those out, because there's some just good educational value here. Look, obviously the chances are quite slim, But I think it's just raising the general awareness of this happening, and just keeping the conversation open.
We'll link to all those episodes you've referenced there in the show notes, and when we bring out the posts around the episode. Okay, final article is from me this week, and it jumped out at me, I think primarily because I'm an optimist. You know this about me, Damian. I'm a strong optimist when it comes to our industry and the future and the us as a lodging category versus hotels and generally. An article in Skift, slightly putting a positive spin potentially on the impact of regulation. So short-term regulation, silver linings. They're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think, in regulation, in regulatory positions taken by different cities around Europe and around the world. I think it's especially interesting because we are seeing different urban areas in Europe attempt to do different things to tip the balance and make sure that they're having the right amount of tourists in their space, still making it possible for locals to live. So let's look at the bad, right? The bad is banning. Banning never helps anybody. Sarah and I talked about it last week, so I won't take too long to talk about it. But Barcelona says that by, I think it's 2029 or 2030, they will completely remove short-term rentals from the accommodation mix there, when they represent a very small amount of the total accommodation stock in Barcelona. And the same thing's happened in New York. So New York has removed, I know the shout out to the Good Morning Hospitality US crew who talked about this earlier last week. And all you're seeing is the rise of home swapping in New York. So home swapping platforms are having an absolute field day. And the price of accommodation has not suddenly declined to make it more affordable for people to live in parts of New York that are very, very affluent. And it hasn't solved the housing crisis. So there's the bad, which is the very, very reactionary thing to do. But then there is also examples of governments taking a view that if they can tax short-term rentals, they can also use that tax to build social and affordable housing, which is something you said to me a few weeks ago. You'll remember when we were talking about this earlier on in the summer, is why isn't more of this happening? So I thought of you when I read this. So in the Australian state of Victoria, there's a 7.5% tax on short-term rental accommodation, and that goes directly back into local areas to help fund and support builders making part of the portfolio that they're building affordable and social. You've got the friend, I've never met this guy, but he seems to talk about him a lot, friend of the podcast, the mayor of Porto, who only puts short-term rentals in parts of the city that need the economic development. So he only gives out licenses in certain regions and then expects those regions to flourish, restaurants to pop up, them to become trendier. And then maybe you double back and you start giving out licenses in areas where you previously said you're at capacity. Bruges is the same. You know, they've had a ban not a ban, they've capped in the historic area, but they've also capped hotels. And then it's going to focus on trying to drive tourists to different parts of the city. All of this sensible city planning is really useful for our industry because it means locally we can say, look at the example here, look at the example here. This city has done something and it has helped work, or it's part of the solution. And I think it's good for us to think about that as an industry, which is why I wanted to focus on the article. That if we just see all regulations bad and we don't engage with policymakers, then we'll just end up with bans and we'll just end up being blamed for things that aren't true and aren't necessarily related to us. So you can't say that short-term rentals causes the housing crisis, but if you're seen to be helping sort of create the solution, then we can then more likely convince people that sensible planning is needed and things like caps that are constantly under review or taxes that go to build things for locals are implemented. So I was really keen on it. I like it. Obviously, I mean, you'll laugh because I always seem to fanboy the mayor of Porto. Am I just angling for a seat, a free trip to Porto, or a seat on the government there? I don't know what it is. Maybe I hope he listens. But I think it's because I'm so passionate about this idea that cities can be advertising their things that we can be doing. So stopping over tourism, so advertising how good your city is out of season, trying to pull people out to the regions. So if Barcelona is a good example, try and get people into wider Catalonia, Girona, those types of things. So again, I just think as a progressive myself, I think the power of government is there to do good, and sensible city planning at the local level mean that all this stuff is possible. And we're starting to see that maybe that conversation change potentially. Look at what happened in Florence last week when the court overturned the ban on 2 condominiums in the centre and said you can't do that because it's not democratic, it's not fair to limit someone's property rights. And again, it's going back to this fact that, most people have just one property that they either rent out themselves or they give to a property manager who rents out on their behalf. So it's an income generator generally for a local person versus just supporting 4 or 5 big hotel brands potentially. And we know the good that short-term rentals do around different events. So let's give the example of the Paris Olympics. The Paris Olympics, a whole range of accommodation came on the market for a very limited time because Parisians decided that they didn't want to be there for the Olympics. And so they put that people who'd never rented out before put their accommodation on. And what happened? It meant that people weren't paying 2,000 euros a night to go and stay in Paris. Like, it really did help the price. And that is a wonderful thing about short-term rental, right? Make it more affordable, stop hotels just price gouging. So I find this one really, really interesting. And shows us all that you can be optimistic about what's possible if you engage with policymakers. And an article that caught my eye this week, and which links to this, Damian, was, I cut my teeth at One Fine Stay in London. So I was part of the team that's trying to grow the supply base. And the Barbican estate, and anyone who's not from London won't know, but the Barbican is a wonderful housing area in the middle of London that was built in the 1970s. It's famous, brutalist architecture. Google it. And they've got a very powerful residents committee. And so many, many years ago, before it was popular to do so, they said, no short-term rentals in the Barbican Centre. So we had a couple of Barbican flats. They're beautiful, iconic flats. And they had to be taken down. And it's a real sign of the times that with the decline of office usage, which we've talked about on the show, because there's also offices in this estate, there is a plan has been submitted to turn a big office in the Barbican into 174 co-living apartments. So, sign of the time. So it shows that even when it seems that, okay, Barbican's a no-go, actually things evolve, and someone's gone, okay, well, co-living is something that allows people to come in for a more flexible amount of time. I imagine that will probably lead to a slight trickle whereby the void period, suddenly you see those going on the short-term rental market. And it's just a good example of city planning and saying, look, actually, there's a use case here where you could bring people in. Let's embrace it. Let's not just say this is not the type of accommodation we want. And, that area of London is not actually over touristy at all, and there aren't a huge amount of hotels in that area. It's very quiet at weekends, so I think it'll do great. I think it will bring a real bit of life into that area, and a lot of people in the Barbican have lived there for years and years and years. So co-living apartments bring in maybe a younger crowd that might spend more in the pubs and bars around and just experience London. And I do think we'll encourage digital nomads and people that are coming in for shorter amounts of time. So yeah, I just thought a bit of green shoots of optimism around that to finish with. I don't know if you think I'm being too overly optimistic, or if you like some of that.
I like it. I always love your optimism, Leo. I'm kind of somewhere in between that and being totally pessimistic, sadly. I've been hearing a lot of things about various towns and cities around Spain that haven't really made the news, but of draconian bans being proposed and in the pipeline for many towns. The thing that kills me here, you talk about sensible planning. And we can talk about taxes, we can talk about licenses and fairness, and hotel lobbies, etc. But I think there's going to be local governments who are going to jump on this bandwagon. They're going to see what's being proposed in Barcelona and think, yeah, that's an easy way out. Let's do this. Let's push the button and then end these short-term rentals. And that's going to keep people happy. That's going to make us look like we're dealing with the social housing issue, which obviously in Europe is a very big problem. But for me, it's the fairness. Given we know how much short-term rentals contribute to local economies, and we know that they are not taking significant amounts of stock out of social housing within certain cities, most cities. But we want fairness, right? We want licensing is a good thing because so long as we're paying our taxes, and in a lot of places, licensing was brought in to make sure we pay our taxes, and that's fine. That's totally fair. But when's the last time we saw people with placards outside of a hotel with 300 rooms saying, "Oh, down with tourism"? It just doesn't happen. So for me, it's about fairness, and it's about looking at numbers of tourists as a whole, and not thinking these guys are to blame. No, it's like, as I say, it's development of certain areas. It's how the planning within the city works. You can't just say every short-term rental has to go. But sadly, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And there's going to be legal disputes for years. And we're hearing something every week about new countries.
Feels like that, doesn't it? It feels like every time you look at the news, it's another city's doing this, another city's doing that. And I think, yeah, it's interesting. I think you've probably fallen somewhere in the middle, right? And again, I'm kind of leading with optimism just because I think I'm trying to, but I agree. I think it's interesting. We heard Dale say during the hot take interview, look, we're focusing on rural and coastal because we think that the urban area of Europe is the one that's going to be most heavily regulated. And if that takes the crowds to the beaches and the touristy areas, do we then have a problem of over tourism in those areas, and cities will become quieter during the summer, and then the pendulum will swing the other way? Don't know. I think what I'm saying is I think city planners have to just be really diligent and hardworking and try and take a long view on what they're trying to achieve in their city, and agree, not just use us as a scapegoat for not building enough houses.
I think that's interesting. You're saying that Dale and House and Estate team are kind of hedging their bets almost in a way, but we've seen what's happened in Scotland, whereby areas in the Highlands are being dealt in almost in the same way as city dwellings. We're being influenced by local governments, and one person can make a change, and we are thousands of people, thousands of units are affected, and sometimes we've got very little say apart from those associations who are representing us. So it's a tough one. But no, I'm going to be optimistic alongside you, brotherly camaraderie here, Leo, and let's look to the future. Let's look to Porto and others who are talking sensibly about this.
Damian, I'm going to get you and I an interview with the mayor of Porto. Right? Come on, let's go and meet him, and let's talk about it. No, I think you're right. It's an interesting one to watch, and we've taken more than enough of people's time this week. Thank you so much, my friend, for joining me. It's always great to catch up with you. For those at home, if you've enjoyed the show, please hit like, share, subscribe on all the usual social channels. And also, if you'd like to contact the show, please send us an email, reach out to us on social media. We'd love to hear your thoughts and how we can keep talking about things you want us to. So until next week, goodbye.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.